Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Pave the Way podcast. I am your host, Greg Hellbeck, and today I have Josh Culler from Northwest Indiana. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So really excited to have you on the show today. Josh has completed over 750 real estate deals. So this guy clearly has some experience and he can deliver some massive value for the listeners. So Josh, thanks so much for joining us. Before we get into the meat of today's show, can you give everyone a little bit about your background and how you kind of got into all this stuff?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on the show, man. I always love being on podcasts. I'm a podcast host myself. I'm a really big podcast nut, listen to a lot of podcasts, host a lot of podcasts, and also produce a lot of podcasts. So I love it, man. It's awesome. Thanks for having me. So yeah, a little bit about myself. So Greg mentioned 750 deals. So I was a part of those deals on a team. So I just to be clear, guys, I did not do that myself. I was on a team. So I was in the marketing department of a company that did 750 deals I was a part of. In one of those years.
Brother.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. So somebody has to come to me like, yeah, you didn't do that.
Yeah.
So being transparent here. So I was a part of the team, but still a really big piece of it. I was one of the heads of the marketing department, along with most of you guys might know Gary Harper. I was actually working with him too. So that was a lot of fun. But anyway, so I'm actually 26 years old. It's not fun saying that anymore. Once I got past 21, Greg, I know you're right behind me too. It doesn't stop. No. So I don't like saying it anymore. But anyway, so I'm 26 years old. Got into the industry when I was 19. So very, very young. Actually worked for a competitor in the area that was working with Gary Harper, and then Tom Olson and Wayne Schaefer. They were all partners. And so I was working for this competitor. One of my friends I played basketball with in high school, his dad owned a portfolio of about 500 doors in Northwest Indiana, did wholesaling and all that stuff. So started working for him. There's a long story of how I got into that. And so worked for them for about 7 months and got my grounds in real estate. I was doing everything from closings to sales, acquisitions, cold calling, Craigslist postings, Facebook post, like everything, closing, like everything you can think of in the real estate industry. And so that's where I got my grounds at 19 years old. I had no clue what was going on, no clue that I was getting myself into this at that point. It was just a job and having fun with it. So then I left there for a few reasons. And I knew Gary Harper because he was my fourth grade Sunday school teacher. And so I've known him for a while and actually worked with his wife at the high school. She was actually the cafeteria lady. And so I worked in the cafeteria for a couple classes and got to know her a little bit. Anyway, so he hired me on. I worked with them for about four and a half years. And then Gary went to start Sharper Business Solutions and, a mutual split, and Wayne and Tom decided to part ways. So I went with Tom and we started, we'd already started Good Success, which is a real estate mastermind. And so I pretty much ran the operations of that from the start there. And then all the way up until about March of this year, I started my media business, which I went full time into. I've always been doing media for probably about the past 10 years, literally since I was about 16 years old, doing all kinds of stuff, video, designing logos, designing brochures. Anything you can think of in media. So I've always had this as a side hustle and finally had the opportunity to go full time, and it's been rocking and rolling ever since. So I love it, man.
I love it. Did you work with John Martinez a little bit? Did you?
John is one of my clients. Yeah. So John is one of my clients I do content production for. I'm actually going to be at his boot camp I'm flying in Saturday and flying in Sunday, and I'll be with him Monday and Tuesday doing video production. So
awesome. Yeah. Cause I know he was talking about you on Facebook and John's one of my good friends. So I'm like, I think it rings a bell for me.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Love John. John's an awesome guy.
He's a good dude for sure. So you're pretty young. You're a couple of years older than me, and you've been at it for a while since you were 19. So, out of those, I wanted to kind of hit on those 750 deals because even though you might not have been the principal in those transactions, that's still a lot of business for someone under the age of 27 to be doing. So what were you guys doing in terms of how were you producing? How were you producing that many transactions? What was your business? What did that business model kind of look like?
So at that point in time, and we're talking probably about 3 to 6 years ago. So between that time period, 6 years ago up until about 3 years ago,
sure.
The HUD market was just on fire. There was an insane amount of deals. We were also doing for sale by owner marketing as well. But the big piece of it was the acquisition side. And I don't even remember the exact number, but they were putting in thousands and thousands of offers every single week on the HUD.
Oh my.
And so we were actually doing deals in Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and then a little bit of Kentucky. So we were doing a lot of virtual wholesaling as well. And so the acquisition side of it was the biggest part of it, because they were putting in thousands of offers on HUD, on the MLS, and then we were, racking up a lot with for sale by owners as well. So that's what I would say. Like, there wasn't really a magic touch to it. It was just consistency and putting in offers. And obviously now, like, people listen to this like, oh, I wish I was around when HUD was around.
Yeah, right.
It was true. Like, it was almost unlimited deals, and there's a lot of competition in our area. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about Northwest Indiana. It's always, in this area, it's always talked about with Chicago, which is, Chicago is one of the biggest cities in the U.S., so it makes sense. But Northwest Indiana is a really, really hot market.
Really?
So there's a lot of competition here, and it's primarily because it's a good market. It's a really good turnkey market. I mentioned Tom Olson, who I worked for several years, and he does a lot of turnkey deals here. And then there's a good amount of deals that are here still. It's still a struggle, obviously, across the country. A lot of people are feeling that. Yeah. But that's what I would tell you. That's one of the biggest reasons why we hit that many. I think it was 2017. No, it was 2016. We actually bought and sold 300 deals in 1 year. And so that was a pretty good feat. But at the end of the day, is like, we dropped down the next year because the HUD had dried up. So
yeah, it's like that one channel you're like relying on, and then you got to figure out from there where do we, what do we do?
Right.
That's like my big thing. It's like I'm always making sure I have more than one line in the water, no matter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love direct mail. I think cold calling, if you do it targeted, if you do it strategically, I think it's really effective. I've never done the mass cold calling, but it's just, I always like to have at least more than one line in the water, because if one guy's up, you don't want to be, a one trick pony. And then
yeah. And I think that was one of the biggest factors to it too, because, the owners of the company, they realized like, hey, we can't be, and the acquisitions department and the marketing department, we all realized that, hey, we can't have, one line in the water. So even though HUD was the biggest acquisitions piece, we still had lines in the water in every other place. We were marketing really hardcore for sale by owners, and bidding on MLS and having realtors go find deals for us and that kind of thing. So I think that is a good key lesson there.
The process, for sure, man, for sure. So I want to shift over now. So you have a lot of experience, and you guys were just to confirm, you're wholesaling these houses, or you're buying these things and turnkeying them. What were you doing on it? Because that's a lot of deals.
So at that point, it was just wholesale, primarily wholesale. I know that they were doing several rent-to-own deals when rent-to-own was really big.
Yeah.
But now, so like I mentioned, the owners of the company split up a little bit just because they just wanted to go two different directions. It was a pretty civil thing. But one of them wanted to do more wholesaling, one of them do more turnkeys. And so, both of them still work. It just depends on what they want to do. So.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. So let's kind of take this now so you're young, you have a lot of experience, so you started your own thing now. So you jumped into the entrepreneur game, you decided to burn the boats and jump into your own business. So what was your tipping point? I love talking with entrepreneurs and like figuring out like what makes them tick, what makes them take the jump, whether they started when they were young or whether they were working for someone else and working. And the thing I like about your story so far, and I don't even really know you that well, is that it looks to me like there's a really good book out there. It's called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. And he talks about in that book, something you want to have where you're going to be able to be successful is that when you go and you get a job and you work for someone else, you build this thing called career capital, which is rare and valuable skills that the marketplace cares about, that you could use that career capital, to increase your career, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or whatever, if you want to climb the corporate ladder. But the more career capital you have, the more value you can provide. And it sounds to me like you built a lot of career capital up working for those investors for a while, being a part of 750 transactions. And now, as you started your own business, you did it smart and strategically. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, what was the reason why you wanted to do that? Because I'm sure you're doing great. You're 24, 25, doing this, crushing it. What made you want to, take the jump?
There's a lot that goes behind that. I'll say a couple of really quick things. So the first thing is, speaking directly to people that are, and not just young people. There's people that are in their 40s that, they have a full-time job and they want to go full-time into real estate. So I'm talking to those people too. But for me, yeah, the groundwork for the business that I have now was being in real estate, because I am very niched. I only market to real estate investors, realtors, or influencers. So 100% of my clients are in that field. And the reason why it works is because I can relate to them better, right? So like, I know the process. I know what marketing they need to do, what kind of details they need to give to their potential customers and that kind of thing. The messaging that they need to have. I also do branding. And so I know what good brands work and what doesn't. So that's a really big piece of it. If I wasn't in this industry for the past 6 years, I wouldn't be where I am today, because I just wouldn't have the expertise there.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. Exactly. You wouldn't have the experience. Right. Yeah.
There's people that I enter a room with that do the same type of business that I do. And, maybe we're in a group with real estate investors, and people come to me first because they know that I'm niched into this market and I know it well. So that was a big factor there, is to stay focused into this specific industry, right? So kind of going back to your question, one thing that I would tell people is don't jump too quickly. People will tell you like, make the leap. Like, yeah, you need to, but that doesn't mean they're telling you to do it right now.
Yeah. Tomorrow,
Exactly. So, and there's a fine line, right? Because people, the biggest struggle, the reason why people tell you that is because you're fearful of making that jump, right? So people will procrastinate, they'll put it off. They just won't jump because they're afraid of the consequences that's going to come up, which I have thoughts on fear too. But at the end of the day, what I would tell you is build up yourself while you're full-time. So most people, especially, talking to the younger people now, they work their 9 to 5, then they go home and then they play video games for the rest of the night. They watch Netflix, they catch up on Game of Thrones and all that.
That's the big issue I see, man.
You don't do that. Like, work on yourself. So, and one of the quotes I heard is, I work 9 to 5 to pay my bills, and then 5 to 10 or 5 to 11 to get in life. Right. So that's a big piece of it. And that's what I did for the past 5-6 years. And you got to be patient with it and allow yourself to get built up enough to get to that point where you can make the jump, and you are built up enough where you're not fearful of it, right? Where you're not like, you have too much going against you. You have too much resistance to make that jump. So instead of going home and playing video games and wasting time going to the bars and all that stuff, like, go home and build yourself up and build up a side business, and then you can make that jump like I did. And that's literally the process that happened for me. It is that simple, is being disciplined to build yourself up during those downtimes. So there's times that I got criticized on a holiday or on a weekend because I didn't go out with friends or I didn't go out with family. And I'm sitting there like, I'm trying to build myself up. I'm trying to build this side business so that it can be a full-time business. And now that I'm full-time and I have my own schedule under wraps, I'm the one that's showing up to all the parties and all the, I'm the one that's showing up and traveling and doing whatever the heck I want, because I was willing to sacrifice that 5-6 years in order to build myself up. So end all be all is be patient enough to build yourself up. Don't make that jump if you're not ready. Like, yourself better than anybody else. If you're ready or not, and have the confidence when you are ready to make that jump, and then things will start to click, man. That's just as simple as it is.
That's such good advice, Josh. I could not agree with you more, because I did the same thing. I mean, I still do it. Like, I'm not a robot. I definitely go out and have fun sometimes, but that is not my priority in life. Like, I just think the advice you gave, especially to folks listening to this who are younger and they want to kind of amp their game up. Let's say they're in their 20s and they want to, be entrepreneurs. I mean, if you're playing a second of video games and you say you want to make 6 figures, you're fooling yourself. And I mean, I'm not saying that video games are terrible. I mean, I personally don't think they're a good use of time. But if you say one thing, and this is the problem with that, like what you just said, I want to kind of add a little bit to that, is that when you tell yourself you want to do something, right? You say you want to, flip a real estate deal, or you want to make $100,000, or you want to be your own boss, and yet your actions are not in line with your intentions, you're going to screw up your subconscious mind, because deep down inside you got to put the work in to achieve your goals, but yet your actions and your behaviors are, watching football and playing video games and sitting on Twitter for 4 hours. And like, the more you do that, the more friction you're going to cause, and then you're going to diminish your chances of actually achieving your goals, because you're not, it's called, what is it called? Like cognitive dissonance or whatever, like where you're basically like, you're thinking one thing, but you're acting in a completely different way. So people listening to this, you should re-listen to this, rewind the last 5 minutes and listen to what Josh said, because he sacrificed, he worked hard, he's building career capital up, and he's, now in a situation where he's his own boss. And I'm sure there's not all sunshine and rainbows there too, but
and that's what I was going to add.
Yeah,
it's real quick.
Crazy.
Yeah. Not to interrupt you too. Like just one thing I want to add real quick before I even forget. Cause I'm an entrepreneur. I got ADD, right? So I want to make sure I squeeze this in. And this is something that I've kind of come to learn since March. Being a business owner, there's a lot of problems, a lot of bad things that could go wrong. Nothing ever goes 100% according to plan, right? So you have to prepare yourself for that. So one thing that, talking about video games and going to movies and bars and stuff like that, I would say that you probably need a good dosage of it. But the problem is people overdose on that stuff. Right?
It becomes a habit for them. Yeah.
So for instance, right. And the bigger problem is that people use that stuff for an escape from the real world. That's the bigger problem. Right. Yeah. But not going too deep into that. Like for me, I use my brain for what I do. Right. So I don't do any physical labor unless I'm like actually on set, shooting video, and even that's not really physical labor. But I'm using my brain in order to actually like accomplish what I'm doing with my career. So because of that, it can be very easy for me to lose my creativity and burn out, especially if I'm just grinding and grinding and grinding, which I don't believe in just doing that all day long. I think that's ludicrous, because you could be spinning your wheels doing absolutely nothing. So I'm focused on the productive side of stuff. But what I would tell you is have a good dosage, especially if you feel like you're getting to the point where you're starting to burn out. You don't want to lose that fire. I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm very, very creative, and I absolutely love what I do. I love putting together videos. I love designing brands and logos and putting the colors together and all that stuff. But it can be easy for me to burn out. So because of that, I have to make sure that I give myself a proper dosage of fun things, right? So I'm a comic book nerd, right? So I love comic books. So I'll read comic books. I love roller coasters. So, me and my wife, we go to Six Flags, and, we just went on Friday, we went to an apple orchard and had some fun there. And it's not an escape from what you're doing. For me, it's more of just being myself and allowing myself to invest time with people, right? So that's the bigger piece of it is making sure you understand that, because I get this feeling that people, like, especially in the entrepreneurship world, self-development, they tell you like you can't do anything fun. You have to always read development books. You always have to be at events, and like you have to balance it. You have to understand that you're human and you can burn out. It doesn't matter how invincible you think you are, and allowing yourself to have fun and get that adrenaline going and getting your creative juices flowing. That all helps in propelling yourself. So that's what I would tell you.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I did last year. I mean, I had a great year business-wise, moved out to La Jolla, thought I was Billy Big Shot. And like, I was so miserable because I didn't have any other balance in my life. I was out here like sitting in this beautiful house. Like, what am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I didn't know anyone. And like, I'm like, my life is so out of balance right now. And like this year I drew a line in the sand. I said, I'm going to make more money this year, and I'm going to have a more balanced life. And I've been doing both. And I'm like, you can really have both. You know what I mean? And like, it's all about being intentional. Like Absolutely. On my little weekly sheet, I have other areas of my life, like I'm going on a nice trip to Palm Springs this weekend, like I'm hang out, catch sunsets. I really have to write on my sheet, like catch 3 sunsets this week. Cause it's harder for me to catch a sunset than it is for me to go like make 10 bids on properties, but it is what it is, It's a double-edged sword. So this is just great advice for someone like wanting to take the jump. So as we transition here, like what is your business look like today now? Like Culler Media, like what are you guys doing? Like how do you guys, get clients, and what does your business look like in terms of the deliverable? And because I love interviewing people who are like, you're in the real estate game, but you have a specialty niche within the real estate game. You know what I mean? Yep. So like, what does your business look like today, pal?
Yeah. So there's 2 primary products, or I guess services would be a better term for it. So we do branding. So we actually design brand identities from scratch. And so that's just, your typical, we get with you, and then we implement like a brand plan, and figure out who your target audience is, what you're going after, all that stuff, which without going into full detail. And then we design the brand from scratch and build it out that way. Then we also do, I mean, if you want a logo, custom logo, then we do that too. There's some stipulations that we put on it as opposed to just going to Fiverr or 99 Designs. But those are the primary things. And then the other thing is that we do content production. And so, you mentioned John Martinez earlier. So John Martinez is one of my clients. I'll go visit him. For him, we do virtual and on-set. It kind of swaps from month to month. But we'll do video editing for him. So if I'm on set with him, I'll actually shoot the video and then come back and produce it and then distribute it. And then sometimes, when I don't go visit him, he'll send me videos that he's shooting. We edit it and then distribute it. So that's kind of a monthly content model that I've developed that allows me to keep clients coming back. Right. That's the best thing.
Revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the model I wanted to roll with because it makes sense. Right. So like, for instance, one of my clients, Abi Golhar, who's in Atlanta, I'll be with him tomorrow. He's got a business to run. Like he's a very busy person, and he can develop content. He's creative enough and he has the know-how to do it. The problem is he doesn't have the time. Right. So like there's two problems that people run into is that they don't have the time and they don't have the know-how. And so that's what kind of we alleviate is getting consistent flow of content out there. Cause you need content. So we get a consistent flow of content. We develop a plan for it and all that. And then we actually produce it. So literally, I'll visit Abi for one day for 8 hours. I'll be with him just shooting video. And then that's enough content. And we do our magic on the back end, dice it up and repurpose it and, all that good stuff. And we get enough content in one day for the next 29 to 30 days. So the entire month. So he only has 8 hours worth of time and a full month's worth of content. So we do all the production and the distribution. So those are the kind of the two things is the branding, the brand designing, and then the actual content production, which includes video, podcasting.
So do you have to go back every 30 days and refilm, or how does that work? Because these guys are all over the country. John's in Springfield, this dude's in Georgia, you're in Indiana. So like, what do you do in terms of like when it's time to get new content? Like, how do you go back and do you travel a lot?
Yeah. So, and that was the biggest thing that I went into with this was, one of the biggest, I guess the adversaries was Josh only has a certain amount of time. Right. So, I can only take on a certain amount of clients, which I'm fine with. There's a goal that I have. Yeah. So there's a goal that I have that I want to reach that is like making Josh sit really well, getting a really good income, and living happily, have very few, the fewer betters, right? I only want a few clients. I don't want 100 clients to work with. I'd rather, have a few clients and make them pay premium and give them premium value. So that's what I'm focused on is that. And so I have my wife actually works with me in the business and she does the distribution of the content. And then I have another video producer that helps me out as well. So I do visit some of my clients. It's about 50-50. About 50% of my clients I do visit on a monthly basis. I have one client who's actually in Springfield and knows John. Actually, I got the client from John Martinez. And I visit her once every other month. And so we kind of tailor the subscription model to the actual client. But a lot of my clients are actually virtual too. So they'll shoot their own videos, send them over, and then we edit and distribute them. So. Okay.
That's awesome, man. No, it's definitely a hustle, man. I love it. But I couldn't agree with you more with the fewer clients at a higher premium. Cause it's like, I do a little bit of stuff with John. Like we'll take on some like sales, consulting clients. And like, last year I had that going besides my real estate business. We had like 4 or 5 at once. And I was like, oh my God, I'm spending my whole, like, it was good. Like it was great income, but like, I'm like, man, I'm spending a lot of time doing this and it's great. I'm helping people. But like at the end of the day, like I think we could probably charge more, take fewer clients, deliver more value, and I can still grow my real estate business. So we decided that was the way we were going to take it. So now I just have like one person to work with at a time. But I couldn't agree with you more. It's like, especially in the beginning, like you're so hungry, you want to scrap and hustle and bring in the revenue. And then like, in the business where you're consulting or doing like, retainer stuff, like it's like, okay, now, the deliverable, you got to make sure you're delivering the value. You charge for the service, you got to deliver the value. So it's like easy to take in the business. And then you're like, oh shoot, I got to like actually, make sure that I'm providing much, much, much more than what I'm charging for. So that's why fewer, better. And
and with this business too, this is something we're looking to, get 100 employees either, right? I'm not looking to ramp up a bunch. And one of the biggest problems with this industry too, in the media industry specifically, is most people want to operate as a freelancer because it just leaves options open. It's just kind of the mindset that they have, working with each other. So if I hire a videographer or a photographer, more times than not, they're going to be a contractor with me.
Yeah.
Or even a graphic designer. It doesn't matter. So that being said, this isn't, some of you might be listening like, Josh, that's not a business that you can sell. And that's 100% correct. And it's not a business that I want to sell. So because of that, I'm actually building another platform out secretly behind the scenes. So that's going to be a business to sell. But I got a couple people that I'm working with that are helping me develop the platform. It's going to be basically a platform for videographers, photographers to be able to pair up with, consumers and businesses where they can book online. And I know you got like Thumbtack and, Angie's List. I don't know if Angie's List does that, but it's similar to that, but it's going to be very specific for videographers, photographers, not going to have any other industry on there. So that's a platform I'm building out right now. That's going to be a business to sell. So
awesome. Love it, man. Well, listen, as we start to wrap the show up, though, I was reading through your bio before we came on here today, and you wrote a book, The First 25 Things Not Taught in School, so that everyone, young person, needs to know. There we go. I read that in like 3 sequences there. So would you mind sharing a little bit about the book you wrote? And, we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll wrap this up with some contact information. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So I released the book December 1st of last year. So it's been out for a few months. I really wrote the book specifically for younger people. So people that are, in high school age, college age, and even up to my age right now, I'm, 26. So, and I've even had people that, are in my network and they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they've read it and they're like, man, I got a lot out of this. It's not just for
I love it.
So I'm like, well, cool. I guess that makes sense. But, when you're writing a book, you got to dial it into a specific audience. So that's the audience I chose because that's what I'm passionate about. The reason I wrote it was because I think, without going into, nitty gritty details and politics and drama and all that stuff, yeah, I believe that there are, and most entrepreneurs agree with me, is that there are a lot of flaws in the school system,
yes,
and things that should be taught that aren't taught, and things that are taught that should not be taught, or are useless. And I mean, for instance, one thing for me is that, calculus, like I don't, unless you're going to be an architect, unless you're going to be, a scientist,
yeah.
Like, I think that that's one of the biggest flaws in the school system is making every single person take the same, even though you have electives and you have courses you can take, like most people have to take the same classes. And for me, it's different too. So I actually mentor a couple people or a few young guys. And they always ask me like, hey, I'm going, college just started up, right? So school is just starting up, the school season. And a few of them have asked me like, I want to go to college, but I kind of don't because you didn't go to college and you got D's and F's in high school and you only graduated with, by the skin of your teeth and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, it's different for every person. I'm just not a good student, right? So I've sat in class, even today, like I'll sit in a seminar and sometimes I have a hard time like paying attention. I'll have to stand up in the back or something like that, or leave the room for just a few minutes because I just have, my brain works a little bit differently than most people's do. So I wrote this book specifically for people to understand things in life. And a lot of it's not even, most of it's tangible, but some of it's intangible. So like, for instance, I talk about, gratitude and how important gratitude is in my life and, getting to where I am today. I give a story about when I was a senior in high school. If it wasn't for this trip, I would not be on this podcast today with you. Right. So, I went to Jamaica on a missions trip and we did not go to, Montego Bay. We went to Kingston, which is
boozing.
Yeah. So we went to Kingston. We went into the ghettos, the areas that are run down, third world country, Jamaica. Yeah. And that changed my life and made me realize that gratitude should be a foundational piece of who I am on a daily basis. And so that's one of the things taught in the book. And so these are just things that I believe every young person needs to know, just like the subtitle says, that a school system's not going to teach them. And sadly, most parents aren't going to teach them. And so I'm very passionate about it because I believe, if I had this book in my hands when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, it would have changed, my life. And these are pieces that I've just pulled out of my life and from other successful people I've been around and trying to pass that on to other people. And so I have that book. I also run an event one time a year that kind of complements this book. And I bring in, kids on for a full day, we teach stuff like this. I'm bringing in another speaker and we just talk about stuff like this and just really open their minds.
That's
and
awesome, man. I love it. I love it. Making big moves, man. I love how you just decided to write a freaking book. Was it hard to do? Like, is it, how long is the book?
So the book is about 120 pages. Writing books is actually a lot simpler than most people think. So I self-published with Amazon, and if you're just looking to write a book and you just want to get out there, like publish with Amazon. Don't mess around with Harper Publishing or whatever. Like don't go around with a big publisher unless you have the grounds for that. For the process, it was pretty simple. I started the concept in July of last year. I had it written by the end of August and fully edited a week later. And then I got it up for pre-order like 2 weeks later. And then it's a very simple process. So if you want to know details about it, you can contact me. But it's
I got
very
the link
simple
in the show notes for everyone if they want to check it out. I got the Amazon link in the show notes there. So
yeah,
Josh, man, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really I'm glad we connected. I've never really spoken to you before. I think we've chatted on Facebook a few times and had you on the show. So it's a cool, like, first time meeting you, I guess, virtually. I'm sure we'll meet in person. So
sure.
If people are interested in checking you out, man, getting your website, your email, like, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? I got the book link in the show notes here. So that'll certainly go out there. So if people want to reach out, what would be the best two ways?
Yeah. So I guess the first way is that you can contact me with my email. It's just josh@cullermedia.com. Culler spelled Culler. Or if you're a real estate investor, I know a big piece of what your listeners are real estate investors in the real estate industry. I actually do have a weekly newsletter that goes out. It's this will be the third week coming out here, in early September. So it's specifically for real estate investors. It's called the REI Marketing Weekly. It's nothing but value, straight value that teaches you guys just the ins and outs and high level stuff about marketing and how to generate more leads. Cause that's what you got to be marketing for, is not just awareness, but to actually generate leads and close deals. Right. So, I teach a couple things myself. I actually interview, an actual investor on the show, or for the newsletter. And so they talk about one thing that they're doing that might be a little unique in marketing that's helping them generate leads. So, last week's newsletter, I had a guy out of Oklahoma City, Jimmy Ogle, talk about postcards and what he's doing different with postcards and how that's helping him generate more leads. And so, so you can find that at cullermedia.com/subscribe, and subscribe for that. It goes out every Saturday. So that'd be awesome.
Got that in the show notes. Sweet, man. Well, listen, I'm sure some people will be reaching out to you. So Josh, thanks so much for being a guest, man. It was an honor. And let's stay in touch, my friend. That was a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Greg.